I don't think he's ever going to be able to recover from this.
And you've been adding in quite a few drones as well. Is this Marauder Hellion style something that you see a lot in Korea?
Haven't really seen it that much. I know MVP did it in a couple of his games though. I
Yeah,
think in
he's
GSL.
sort of popularizing it on the North American server. I'm seeing it a little bit more than certainly more than things like mech plays and stuff like that.
I don't think it's too scary, just because Bailings deal well with Hellions. Yeah, so what should I kill him with?
How about 100 banelings?
I can do that.
And then he has one siege tank, and you lose the game.
Pretty much. It's a lot of turrets.
Yeah. And this actually brings up another good point, and that's just finishing off a Terran player. A couple weeks ago, I was playing LZ Gamer on the stream for one of my sessions with In Control, and I was so far ahead. Like literally, I think at one point I was looking at the replay, and he had 13 drones or 13 SCVs, and I had like 70 drones. But he's just scrappy, and Terran just hangs in there and hangs in there and hangs in there, and it's just like, how the fuck do you finish off a Terran? So I mean, he GG'd out of that game, but
Yeah. Finishing off Terran. I think the key to that is you don't want to finish off Terran. Like, there's so many times where you feel so ahead, and you're just like, okay, I'm gonna kill this guy, and then you send in all your units, and it's a bad position, and you lose all your stuff, and then they get back into the game. But once you have a lead, and you just keep doing things like taking more bases, adding drones, spreading overlords around the map, because drops are a big deal for Terran to, get back into games that they've already lost. So I think you should just always stay calm, follow the steps that you would normally take, take a fort base in time, add drones in time, go hive, stuff like that, and just don't do anything fancy to try to go for a quick win. And I think if you do that, then nothing can really happen to you. Just don't get over greedy and charge into siege tanks when like, okay, it's probably not a good idea, but I just want to finish them off and do it anyways.
cool. Alright, so some people are saying stream problems, other people are saying stream's fine, so I would love to play one more game, but we are basically running out of time. So I'm just going to jump into some questions for you, do a little Q&A before we send you packing. That cool?
Sounds good.
Alright. So I will pull up my email, and there are about 100 questions for you in here. We'll try and pick and choose some good ones. Okay, Rhett. I'm just make sure. I think we're online. I think we're good. Sweet, awesome. All right, let's do this. Rhett, is there a player in Europe or North America or even Korea who you have consistent trouble with, who beats you on a regular basis?
I think Korea, I would have to say MVP. He's very strong. He's on ladder, like, it's pretty much the only person I consistently lose to. As for Protoss, there's probably a whole bunch of Protoss right now who consistently beat me, but that's just because I have a hard time with the matchup right now. So I guess you could say MC. He pretty much continuously just rapes me, whatever I do. A bunch of Protoss on Korean ladder, like Genius, giving me a really hard time. I'm not sure about Europe or America because I haven't played there in almost 2 or 3 months. So, but I can't imagine there are players in Europe or America right now who would give me, the same kind of feeling that those Korean guys give me, just because I feel like the level here is a lot higher.
Yeah.
But yeah, those two are those three guys are raping me pretty consistently right now.
All right. Well, here's one ZvT specific question. We kind of touched on it in the lesson, but maybe we can talk about it a little more now. And I'm going to try to paraphrase this because it's sort of long. Terran is able to do a lot of stuff to keep the Zerg off balance in the early game and to just be annoying. Does Zerg have any options to put that pressure back on the Terran player in the early game without going all in?
Yeah, I think you can definitely be cute with speedlings. I mean, just him moving out, you running into his base, or his mineral line at his natural if it's an open natural. Stuff like that is a good way to get back a turn and keep him on his toes for the early game. Once you get into the mid game, of course, you can do a lot with mutas. And really, a lot of Zergs go mutas, but it's really you really have to sit down and think about how you can use your mutas in the best way possible, because even between top Zergs in the world, there's a huge difference between what one guy is able to do with his mutas and how he uses them, and then the other top Zerg player uses them. And you can really make a big difference if you're just very smart and always in the right places with your mutas. So I think any Zerg in the world, if they just sit down and look at some of their replays and go over watching, like, okay, this is what I'm doing with my mutas, but maybe I would be much better off going into this position of his base to harass and just try to find like recurring teams in your ZvT games where you can really annoy Terran, where if you muta harass him and then just try to do the best job possible. I think you can make a big difference there in your games.
Okay. Kind of as a segue from that, how important is going back and rewatching the replays of your wins and your losses? Probably more importantly that you watch those losses. Like, how much time, I guess, do you spend analyzing your own replays?
I usually just most of the games I lose or win, I can kind of understand why at this point, just because I've played so much. So I don't really watch them that often. But anytime something happens, like, wow, I really thought I was doing well that game and I lost, or something I don't really quite understand, like, why did he have this many units this early? I thought he was, expanding or getting economy, and something that throws me off, I will always rewatch and, try to look at the replay and then look for clues, like, how can I recognize this better in the future, and what can I do to prevent losing in the same way? So I think for for aspiring young players who want to get better, reviewing replays and reviewing losses, and not just looking at the replay. I mean, it's very tempting to sit down and watch the replay and go, hey, it's a cool StarCraft 2 game, but you should always specifically look at certain timings or things that you can do differently in your play that would make a difference.
All right. Yeah, I have a terrible habit of winning a game and going back and watching it and gloating to myself, and then losing a game and just instantly erasing the fucking replay.
Yeah, that's definitely the easiest solution, but yeah, I think it can definitely help watching losses.
Yeah. All right. Here's another ZvT question. Dear Rhett, what is your hotkey setup for Ling Muta Baneling play? Do you have any tips on Baneling Micro?
I use 1 for mutas, 2 for banelings, 3 for zerglings. A big tip that I can give you is before every fight, if you have your banelings in one group, they're always going to be very clumped. So I think you should always spread out your banelings as much as possible, and then just so they don't run in a big clump, and like 3 siege tank shots are going to take them all out. You definitely want to avoid that. And then also your banelings should always be on move command, never on attack command, because you just want to move to his marines and just keep chasing his marines with your banelings. And then if he spreads them out, I mean, that's when moving becomes inefficient. So that's when you start using A command, but you definitely want to avoid hitting tanks or tours or anything like that, or marauders with your banelings. So always use move command initially.
Cool. So in our session today, we didn't get to see any heavy mech commitments, heavy mech play. This is a big question, and the answer is probably going to be a long one. But what can you tell us? What advice can you give us for dealing with a meching Terran who comes out with a ball of Thor, Hellion, maybe a few Marauders, a couple Siege Tanks, and a Banshee or two, a Raven, 900 SCVs?
Well, what you just described sounds pretty unbeatable to me, but actually it's a pretty short answer. I think Roaches, Counters, and Brute Lords are the key to beating mech. Like mech is so slow, so whenever he moves out, you should always, hey, I'm gonna counter you, and you attack is natural, and you make a move back, or even he just trade base with him, and then try to expand all over the map and just dwindle him down that way. I think roaches are definitely the unit of choice against mech, and then you want to be able to get brute lords very quickly. And then once you have brute lords, he can't siege his tanks because of the brute lanes, because he will be doing damage to his own units. So once you get those brute lords, you can always engage with brute lord roach, and you will come out on top most of the time.
You can always engage with Brood Lord Roach, and he'll come out on top. Yeah, I
Yeah,
guess.
if he's sieged up, you can just have the brute lord shoot, and
Yeah.
wait till he has to unsiege, and then you just move in with your roaches.
Okay,
But
makes sense.
until that point, like whenever I see mech and I recognize it and I see 3 factories, I will just get a fast third base, pump a shitload of drones, and try to go fast hive, and then go mass roach plus early brute lords.
Cool. So one thing you didn't mention that other Zerg players have talked about, I know Sci Starcraft loves this, and Machine even said it too, is Neural Parasite. When do you use Neural Parasite, and against what unit composition would you research it?
Neural Parasite is also very effective in dealing with mass Tors. I know some Zergs like to play with Neural Parasite against mech. I just prefer using the fast brute lord mass roach thing. But I know even some Zergs in OGS like Xenio or Cezanne, they're often going mass roach plus like 6 or 7 infestors with neural parasite against Thor tank armies, and then just taking over Thors, and that seems to work pretty good as well. So I guess you can just try to play around with both and see whatever you like best.
Alright. One more question from the same guy. What mouse speed do you play on? What mouse speed do you feel is optimal for a Zerg player? And okay, that's the whole question. So mouse speed.
Well, I have a Razer mouse, the Abyssus.
Mm-hmm.
So basically my settings are in the Razer driver, the sensitivity is on 10, which is the max.
Mm-hmm.
And then in Windows, I'm on the 5th bar, I guess you could say. The 5th bar in Windows, and then in StarCraft 2, I put it at 48%.
Okay.
And that seems like a good speed for me. I think mouse speed is very personal,
Yeah.
and it doesn't really matter. Whatever you feel comfortable with should be good.
Cool. Cool. I also play with a Razer mouse on pretty high settings, but at about 50% in StarCraft.
I do keep my scroll rate in StarCraft 2 pretty high. That's at 80% for me.
Yep. Same.
I know
here.
that's there's a lot of people who have it a lot slower, but I feel like because creep spread is pretty important. I feel like a high scroll rate is pretty useful.
Mm-hmm. Boxer kind of famously in Brood War uses the arrow keys to scroll around. Does anybody do that in StarCraft 2?
I think some people do. Not a lot. It's pretty rare, but I think MC might be using that a little bit. And then there's a couple of pros that do it.
All right. So another ZvT question. I'm wondering what Rhett prefers to get first, Baneling Speed or the Spire. I know that you already answered that on stream, but could you extrapolate on why a little bit?
Against regular just bio play, if you see Officer Barracks, I would always get Baneling Speed first, because I feel like if your keep spread is good, then Baneling Speed can stop anything early game, and then the Baneling Speed kind of gives you safety, and you can get your third base up and get a nice drone count, and then I feel like that's a good position to go Mutas. Rather than when I go Mutas first, I feel like before I get maybe 16 of them or 15 of them, I'm going to be relatively weak against early marine attacks. So I don't like getting in situations where I'm not happy with my drone count, or I can't take my third base because I don't have enough link baneling. So I definitely prefer getting baneling speed.
Okay. Well, we are basically out of time, and but there is one question that keeps popping up. So if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you one last question.
I don't mind.
And that is about steps. Now, we've said you don't play steps a lot, or you veto it or whatever, and we have acknowledged that steps fucking sucks, but
Mm-hmm.
Blizzard makes small maps, and we're gonna